Welcome to the Doctor Connect, where we are connecting through inspiring stories and providing education and information around wellness, health, cancer, medical technology. I'm your host, Dr. Ludmila Schaefer, broadcasting from Kansas City in the United States. All information discussed on this platform does not substitute your medical care. Guests on this platform sharing own stories, experiences, and conclusion. And today we have a very interesting topic for conversation. And let's see if any of you can relate. It's from trigger to solution. How many times in life we think, oh, this has happened to us. What's going to happen next? And that's what we're going to uncover today. One, can you find a science in intuitive communication? Maybe you can relate to physics or maybe vibration. Modern medicine is very critical to this. Where you are recovering from illness or just trying to change your mindset, opening business, developing community, or maybe you are empowered with choices that creating your vibrant life by healing through tea. And with that, we'll have our very special guest that you will see just in a moment, and we will be right back. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Wow, thank you. Well, before we start, I would love for you, please, let's introduce and tell me your name, where are you located, and then afterwards we'll dive into our story. And we start with Terry. Terry, welcome.
Thank you for having me. My name is Terry J. I'm a medical intuitive, and I help people to find the issues in their tissues and release it.
Excellent. Wow, thank you. And Peter, welcome.
Well, hi there. My name is Peter Bedard, and I'm out in Southern California. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And Betsy, welcome. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I'm Betsy Moyer. I'm in Santa Barbara, California, and I am a cancer patient, stage 4 anal cancer, and currently all scans clean.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing.
Wow.
Thank you. Yes. And for all audience, I just would like really to think, and we'll put moment of silence, because we really need to appreciate and we need to think where we are today and where we were yesterday and what's going to happen to us tomorrow. Thank you. With that, today we're going to discuss from trigger to solution. And before we start, I just would like to see what's your definition of the trigger, or maybe trigger from solution. And we're going to start from Peter.
My definition of trigger. So, wow, that could be so much. The idea of a trigger is to have something that sets off something else. And for me in the work that I do, so just to back up a little bit, I had to heal myself of all kinds of things that the doctors told me couldn't be healed. And luckily, I had a group of people that believed in me and supported me in doing this. And I had fibromyalgia and arthritis and asthma and bronchitis. I was slammed into the back of a semi-truck. I died. I came back. I had to learn how to walk again. I had white blood cells attacking red blood cells. I had a hemoglobin splitting and shutting down organs, all that type of stuff. So I went, the doctors just kept giving me more medicine, more pharmaceuticals, and they were amazing at putting my bones back together, but they really didn't know what to do with me. So I luckily found a doctor that was a medical doctor who was open to doing holistic things. So I let him guide me and do that type of work. And then I really found all these other holistic people, integrative people who were able to bring in their skills, and I was able to adapt and work through their skills. The work that came out of that in healing myself, I call Convergence Healing. And it's the idea that every wound has a physical side to it that the doctors are dealing with, has a mental side with it, and has a spiritual side with it. So all of those wounds need to be healed at the same time, or the one wound with those many aspects needs to be healed at the same time. And I have a feeling that your other guests are going to be right on top of that. My work is often said that I have a dear friend who's a medical intuitive teacher, and she often says, Peter, you need to understand that your work is like teaching people how to be their own medical intuitive.
Yeah.
So we do things. Yeah, absolutely. And we do things to get to know the part of us that's hurting, whether it's mental, physical, or spiritual, how it's taking place in our life, befriending it, being a friend to it instead of an enemy, loving it because that part of us is hurting, it's ill, and it needs care. It doesn't need hatred or anger or resentment. It needs love. And so I teach this whole process on how to talk to the part, how to develop a relationship with the part, how to change your mindset. It uses hypnosis and meditation skills and neuro-linguistic programming and some spiritual, non-religious work. So it's a way of really getting people in touch with their bodies so that they can actually have the part of them that's suffering lead the healing. And I refer constantly to people like Terry and other people to create this team of wellness on each of those levels to bring about the healing. So
excellent. And I understand, that this is more, you went through personal experience and that's what trigger and then convert. And now you find the tools, and we actually going to have conversation just one-on-one, little bit more, because I would like to learn in details tools together with our audience. And also I want to ask Betsy, of course, with so many triggers, and cancer is a shock. And as an oncologist, sometimes people tell me, well, you are an oncologist, you got used to, but we never get used to. Every single time we understand in our heart. So do you have a certain definition from trigger to solution, or maybe you have a different point of view?
Well, I know that my healing right now feels predicated upon all of the lifestyle changes that I've made since the discovery of my cancer. And so it's easy for me then to look back at the lifestyle that I led pre-cancer and think about particularly nutrition as, poor nutrition as being a trigger. But all of the elements that I'm trying to focus on now, from spirituality and mindset and supplementation, and then just general health and following my intuition, all of those aspects are something that I focus on now that are part of the solution that I think is what is keeping me alive.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you. And I also learned that you have business, you have other things we will learn in a little bit. So we would love to hear, because this is also part of mindset and everything else what you do beyond healthcare. So Terry, how about you? Tell us.
My feeling about triggers are stuck negative emotions. They're things a lot of times that we don't even realize are in our past, and it's garbage in our system. It's stuck negative emotions, and I call it issues in the tissues. So I help people to look and find those triggers, find those stuck negative emotions, and release them, and then they can allow the body to heal, because the body can heal on its own. It's just that, it's like when people get cancer, they want to fight it or beat it. And it's like, cancer is a very low vibration frequency. And if you try to fight it or beat it, you are feeding it again with low vibration, low frequency. If you send love energy into cancer cells, they die. They can't function in a high vibration. So to me, that always ends up being one of the solutions when we're talking about cancer.
Yeah, excellent point. A little bit deeper in this scientific option, because they also use in other types of comorbidities for vibration. And with that, thank you very much, everyone, for staying with us on the Dr. Connect show, and we will be right back. Well, surprise, Peter, you are here. And
I'm here. Glad
to start our conversation. So for the whole audience and for everyone, we are discussing today from trigger to solution, but also we're going to learn a lot of tools. And I would like to dive with you into some specific back of the story. And you told us the way things happen to you, and you've done so many different other things in life, and now you're doing what you are doing. So what's the secret? What are the tools? Can you share with us 3 tools?
Sure. There's so many, and I'm happy to share some very simple ones. In my experience, I've done this work for about 18 years, and I've worked a lot in cancer. And directly with cancer, one of the most important experiences is to stop making that part of you that's suffering, wherever the tumor is, in whatever part of the body, it's to go to that part and love it. It wasn't cancer, but I once had a client who had severe heart issues. His heart was down to, I think, about a 30% capacity. And he was so angry sitting with me. He was saying, I'm so angry at my heart. I'm so angry. And all of that anger and that resentment and that frustration with his heart, I said to him, I said, could you stop for a moment? And would it be possible to say thank you to your heart? Because you're still alive, and your heart, although it's been wounded, is doing the best it can. And you're still here. So I wonder if instead of being angry at your heart, you could be grateful for the fact that you're still functioning. So that's one of the things I ask people to do, is to go to wherever that part is, whether it's a kidney or whether it's skin or a heart or lungs or whatever the cancer is, breast, to go to that part of you and say, I'm so sorry you're suffering. I'm so sorry you're suffering. And I'm not going to contribute to that suffering anymore. And I love you. And to actually engage with the tools of your brain, because just saying I love you isn't enough. To actually engage with all of your senses to understand what love looks like, or feels like, or smells like. Because once you're engaging the whole brain in that idea, you have a thought. The thought affects the body, right? We know that, something happens, we're upset and we feel bad. Something happens and we have fun and we feel great, right? Our thoughts are intrinsically connected to our wellness. So to have a thought of, well, what is perfect health, let's say? What does it look like, feel like, smell like, taste like? And once you know the color of it, let's say, I'm just going to pick a color for me. The color is like a beautiful apple green. And that's like the green that you get when the leaves are about to burst in the trees in the early spring. And you can see that color, feel that spring, that energy, that life as I'm speaking it to you. So once you engage in that way of thinking, the thought and the feeling, then bring that thought and that feeling of joy, of perfect health, or whatever it is, to the part of you is suffering. There's so many studies that show us that what we think directly affects how our body is healing, how it heals. So that first suggestion is to love the part of you that is hurting, to recognize it, to be with it, to love it, and then to say, I'm going to be curious about what health looks like, and I'm going to bring that health, that awareness, color, temperature, texture, sound, smell, and taste of that health to that part that needs that love.
Excellent.
Thank you. No, it does wonders. My clients walk out of that first session when we do such a simple thing, and they have no pain. They come in with a high level of pain, and by the end of that first section, it's gone for that day. Sometimes it lasts 24 hours. Sometimes it lasts a week. Sometimes it lasts only a few hours. It depends on the person and how committed they are to the actual act of healing. So the second tip I want to share with everybody is to name your pain. The part of you, whether it's a tumor or something else, give it a name and give it a shape. Now, I'm very literal. So when somebody asked me, like, I blew out my knee, right? My whole leg had to be restructured. They had 14 surgeons fly in from all over the United States to rebuild my knee. And when I look and I want to connect with my knee, I ask for an image to pop up in my head about my knee. And it always just looks like my knee. It's my knee, right? The kneecap and the bones right there. But for many people, the part of them that's suffering, whether it's a knee or an organ that's having a difficult time or whatever it is, sometimes it shows up as a emptiness, a sense of nothing, a black blob, a thunderstorm, a lightning bolt. It could show up in any way. So go to that part that's hurting, ask it what it looks like, and let that first thought pop into your head. Be careful not to let your ego or your judgmental mind come in. Just ask it for a shape and a name. And by doing that, the brain can start working with it. So I once had a client who said that her tumor was a goat, and it was named Barnaby, I think, something like that. It was Barnaby the goat. Well, Barnaby told her tumor, right, the representation, the metaphorical representation of her tumor, told her that it could no longer keep eating everything. Goats are famous for just eating everything and being perfectly fine, right? The goat that showed up for her was sickly. And it said, I can't keep doing this. You keep feeding me stuff that I can't digest anymore. And that was very true with her life, mentally, physically, in her profession, in her work. She just kept forcing this part of her to digest all of this stress and negativity. And finally, the goat showed up and it just said, I can't do it anymore. And why that's important is because when the brain can conceptualize something, oh, there's Barnaby the goat, then the brain can actually work with it. When the tumor or the pain or whatever it is just this blanket overwhelm experience, the brain kind of disconnects and it just shuts it down. It's too big to fathom. But when you give it a name and a shape, oh, I felt Barnaby show up, right? Or I felt Bob the Blob show up, whatever it is, then the brain can actually
have connection. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it becomes more
and you have a
personal.
conversation.
Yeah. To you.
There you go. Yeah. And my third tip is to actually enroll people in your healing. So many of us, whether we're integrated practitioners or holistic practitioners or allopathic Western medical doctors, we think we know everything. And it's why I get most of my referrals now from medical doctors, because they often, the ego, I think, has dropped in the industry and the doctors are being more open. They're saying, hey, especially oncologists, like oncologists have incorporated chiropractic and acupuncture, and there's even Reiki. In England, you can actually go to the doctor's office or the hospital and get Reiki. Like there's an opening up. And when we stop making the pie like small and we start making the pie bigger, and we understand that the wound is physical and the doctors are really good at dealing with that physical side, right? The blood work, all of that really, really important stuff, that's their expertise. But the doctors don't know how to deal with the spirit. Or most doctors, maybe you do. I have a feeling you might. You're so sweet and compassionate. But most doctors don't know how to deal with it.
We're on my show. Yes, we are compassionate.
You are. I could feel it from you. Right. But most doctors don't know what to do with that. Right. And if somebody's heart is broken, honestly, it's frustrating for doctors, because if that person's heart is broken and they're so sad or depressed or whatever it is, then even studies show that that person has a lesser chance of healing. So to bring in a team. So I'm going to really encourage everyone to find people you resonate with, no matter what your condition is, and find your team, develop your team, get someone that you work with on that spirit level, get a doctor that listens to you, right? And get somebody that works with you on that emotional level. It might be, you might be surprised to find I worked with people I never thought I'd work with in order to heal. I had severe fibromyalgia. I was in pain constantly. Getting out of bed was so hard in the morning. And I found I did sound therapy. My judgmental critical mind said, that's stupid. My doctors said, that's stupid. But when I opened up to it and I did the sound therapy, suddenly I would walk out of those sessions and the pain would be gone, and it would be gone for weeks. And then I did what Betsy talked about. I changed my diet. I did iridology. I did all these crazy things that people judge, and yet they worked and they healed me. So build that team of support. Build that team so you can lean into not just one person, but a whole loving group of people that are holding you in their work and in their embrace.
Excellent. Peter, you brought a very excellent point, because for a long period of time, scientific community against holistic medicine and a lot of other approaches. And even right now, who is listening to the show, we all understand that the science, medical science, did not accept. Well, one thing that in medical school not taught about nutrition and how to do other things besides, here is your subject and that's the formula. And then actually this year, for the first time, we are combining the guidelines of American Society of Clinical Oncology actually with integrative oncology and integrative medicine. And right now, everyone is more open. And that's why we are learning new tools, because we've been either scientific community on this side and then patients and everything here. So how do we bridge the gap? And the one question before we end I love having you on the show. This has been such amazing experience in your tools and discovery. But also, can you tell us, how did you actually start doing tea? In the beginning of the show, you went to start drinking tea. Why tea? And I tell you, I love tea. Yes, every day I drink tea. So why tea? That's the last question, and I'm giving you 60 seconds.
All right, I'll be quick. So I had to heal myself again on multiple levels, and I discovered that my diet was one of the levels that I needed to address. In doing that, I started looking to Mother Nature, not just a nutritionist, but actually the indigenous knowledge that was available to us, whether it was Chinese herbs or even North American Indian type of understanding of things. Like a friend of mine, I grew up in California, so I was surrounded by the Mexican community, and I would see how the abuela, the grandmother, would go out in the garden and pick dandelion and boil the dandelion, have you drink that dandelion root, and you felt better. Your stomach was calm, the ache went away. And so I started to go into healing teas and to understand, well, how is Mother Nature already trying to or already offering us healing? And so I created all these wonderful blends. Like I have a happy tummy blend and an anxiety blend and all these different blends in order to support all the work that I'm doing in all these other levels, whether it was with the Western medical doctors or whether it was with a holistic or integrative doctor, right? It was like a background support. And I so appreciate your asking that question, because tea is an important part of my life. And it's such an easy way to bring in just everyday healing. Mother Nature's right there for us all the time.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I was actually growing up, we were gathering herbs and then drying ourselves and just mix it and drink tea. Thank you. Thank you, Peter, very much. And for the all community, the last one, please tell how the community can connect with you.
Oh, sure. I'm really easy to connect with. I have Facebook. So if you just go to Convergence Healing, search on the web. This is a copy of my book right here. It's called Convergence Healing, Healing Pain with Energetic Love. And that's my tag on Facebook, on Instagram. Twitter is just my name, Peter Bedard. My website's Convergence Healing. I was so blessed that in my practice, I just wanted to help my clients. And I started writing things down and self-published my book. And then Simon & Schuster bought the rights to it and published it. And I had to take everything down within a week of my self-publishing. So I'm very, very blessed. They could find me on Amazon and Audible and Kindle and YouTube, Convergence Healing, all that stuff. Thank you so much.
You are very proactive. Thank you. Thank you. And that was Peter Bedard with Convergence Healing. And thank you, everyone, for staying with us at the Dr. Connect show. And we are sharing our experiences, stories, and conclusion. And we will be right back. Well, hello. Hi. Thank you, Peter, for staying with us for a moment. And I just would like to tell thank you. And we really going to carry conversation with Betsy. And thank you so much for all your experience in nutrition and with your tools. And we're going to transition right from you right to the tea. Betsy, do you have tea?
I do. Cheers to you, Peter.
Yeah, I have to go back, and I'm just gonna leave you here, and I'm just gonna go make the tea, and I'm gonna come back.
Sounds great.
Excellent. Well,
everything's better with tea.
Yes, Peter, if you would please stay at the top of the hour, we're going to come back and reunite. Thank you so much for being with us. Betsy, thank you so much, and our heart and soul with you. Thank you for being with us, and it takes you're so beautiful and inspirational, and you with everything happening in your life. And I also learned more about your business and your story, and I really would like to hear your back of the story or things you would like to share with us.
Sure. It can get long. So, to do my best, I actually was a caretaker for my husband who suffered from a rare type of lymphoma, Burkitt's lymphoma. In 2013, he went through 6 months of intensive treatment. It seems like, he was back on his feet and life was going so wonderfully when my mom had a diagnosis of an endometrial cancer. And I moved with my baby to be by her side for a few months while she convalesced. We lost her. She was in treatment for over 2 years, and then we lost her in 2019 to endometrial cancer. And it was less than 6 months later, and I had my own diagnosis of anal cancer, which is becoming more and more prolific among my generation. It's an HPV-driven cancer, which now there is a vaccine for, and I would encourage everyone to consider vaccines. But yes, so that was in late 2019 for me. So I spent anal cancer, HPV-driven is usually, there's a 95% success rate with the NIGRO protocol, which is a chemoradiation protocol. And I had that, and I was one of the very few who was non-responsive. That was terrifying news to receive because there is such a high success rate. There's not a lot of data for what happens to those of us who don't recover. So I was terrified. I immediately had an APR resection, an abdominal perineal resection surgery, which means I have a colostomy bag. I had a very tough recovery from that. And in the process, the cancer did spread to my liver. So I was very fortunate to have stumbled upon a book titled How to Starve Cancer by Jane Mcclelland. And this book has launched a bit of a cult following. It led me to question my conventional oncologist, and he paired me up with an integrative oncologist here in Los Angeles. And just together with her, I've learned so much and done so much work. So throughout my chemotherapy, my second round of chemotherapy and immunotherapy, I also practiced a ton of integrative oncology. I take probably 40 supplements a day and drink lots of dandelion root, green, and mushroom teas. Radically changed my diet. I eat no red meat, no dairy, no low carb. So lots has changed. And I also, exploring my spirituality. And,
in addition to that, yeah. Thank you, Betsy, for sharing. And we really wish you the best recovery and best success and so many things. But also, it's very interesting how you said you've been with medical community and things you went through. And that communication with oncologists, with right now, we are teaching a lot of young medical trainees because the recent studies show that a lot of patients, they don't tell the doctor things that they do in outside treatment. And we are teaching community that we have to be more receptive to build this trust. We cannot just come and say that this is chemotherapy, this is radiation, and just for the purpose for the whole audience, that yes, Betsy described that this is a very good treatment. It's given chemotherapy together with radiation. It's intensive. However, in a small percentage, it doesn't work, but it has been the most successful and most important that preserve sphincter that we actually able to hold bowels. So this is a lot. So Betsy, for everything what's happening, how did you discover your conversation with oncologist? Was your oncologist accepting of this? Because we are discussing, you are doing so many other things that scientific medical community does not accept, and we have so many interaction between supplements and herbs and chemotherapy, immunotherapy. So how was your conversation?
Well, I feel like I have so much to say about that. I really studied up. Once I ran across the Mcclelland book, which a lot of people have run across, I joined a lot of communities, and it led to other books that I also read. I'd like to really call out another one, which is Radical Remission. In that book, it lists 9 tenets. Basically, this specific researcher, Dr. Nasha Winters, I believe, she interviewed thousands of cancer patients who had radically survived stage 4 cancer diagnosis. And she pooled all of the different aspects that they did. And these 9 tenets are the things that all of them had in common. So I got to work immediately on those 9. But the reason why I point to that so soon is because one of them is to follow your intuition and to advocate for yourself. I love my conventional oncologist so much. He's the exact same conventional oncologist that saved my husband's life. I was very lucky to be able to have him throughout my care as well. I fully respect him. He is deeply rooted in conventional oncology. But he was open-minded enough to listen to me. I brought to him, tons of questions that I had gathered from the research based off the book. And he heard me and he said, this is not my wheelhouse, but I know someone in the community who can help guide you. If you're going to do this, I'd like for you to do it right. And that landed me with the integrative oncologist that I work with, Dr. Nalini Chilkov. And she has been instrumental in just helping me understand this and navigate it. It was so overwhelming to do on my own. But with her at my side to guide, helped me to identify exactly which supplements to take at what parts of my treatment journey.
And that's where the partnership develop, and all this partnership actually bring to best outcome. And although we had, and I believe that for trigger, not only one, you had previous life experience, and then you had your diagnosis, but then also you brought questions, you brought book, and that was also trigger. The trigger actually led to all other integrative oncology, the whole new spectrum that you learn. And I think this is very detailed, very specific message to our audience, because we have to be open. We have to develop that communication, and that's what lead the best outcome. So, and now I also learned that you do have business. Is that correct? Or I
Yes.
misunderstood? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. Is that your passion, or am I going outside our topic of conversation? If I am, you just stop me. We just
No, I'm
something else.
happily. One of those 9 tenets from the Radical Remission book is to find your reasons to live. And it doesn't mean find reasons not to die. It means what really makes you feel passionate and feel alive. And my list was quite long. I have a toddler. I have a wonderful family. I love my husband. So, obviously those were first and foremost on my list. But not far down the list was my passion for interior design. And for, entrepreneurship. And so I have, I actually have an embarrassing number of irons in the fire. And, after cancer, immediately, one of the things that launched as a result was a design pursuit with my friend, Kate, who is an Airbnb superhost. And so together, she and I help those who are interested in short-term rentals get their homes launched and ready.
That's unbelievable. On top of everything what you are going through, and you do this, and you host community, and that's why we love learning from you, Betsy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I would love for you to stay to the top of our hour, so then we'll bring more, because everything leads to one to another. And thank you for being with us. And this is the Dr. Connect show. Please connect with us. And with that, we will be right back. All right, Terry, welcome back. Welcome back. We just had conversation with Betsy, and I would like to make a transition because you are sort of the other, solution to the trigger. Is that close enough?
Well, I think as being a medical intuitive, I get to find the issues in the tissues. So when we have dis-ease, there's always an emotional cause. And I shouldn't use the word always, but I'm going to, because I've never worked with anybody that has serious illness that did not have an emotional cause. So I think it's really important, when you talk about having a trigger, it's the stuck negative emotions. And we can find ways to release it.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Betsy, thank you so much for being with us. And we will see you just in a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes. So please stay with us. And this is the Dr. Connect show. We will be right back. Terry, thank you. Thank you for making all this transition. And I really love to learn so much from you. I've been waiting for a long period of time because we do know that a lot of kind of vibration and intuition, they actually did research in bariatric surgery. So we complement those things, the outcomes show better. So we do know that a lot of things that we want to learn from you, we actually do know that we implement in scientific community. And with that, can you please tell us back of your story?
Well, my story is really weird. I mean, I'm a down-to-earth cowgirl. I've been with horses my whole life, and I was doing a horseback therapy program with disabled kids when I picked a kid up out of his wheelchair and put him on the back of one of my horses. And he said, ouch, I have a cramp in my hip. And so I looked at him and I said, you have a cramp? Well, here, sit this way. It'll take the cramp out. And he looked at me and he said, hey, you can hear me. And I said, well, of course I can hear you. It didn't dawn on me at the time that he was completely nonverbal. So we went through our... He's completely nonverbal. So we went through our program and he was chattering about the school play and his little girlfriend and all kinds of things at school that had nothing to do with doing his horseback riding. So I took him off the horse, and of course I was chattering away with him. I was speaking out loud, and of course he was speaking in his head. And so I took him back off the horse. He went back to class, and the gal that was helping me said, boy, he's sure talking great. And I said, well, he's very bright. Just because he is, cerebral palsy doesn't necessarily mean he has an intellectual disability. And she looked at me, she said, Terry, he didn't say a word. He can't, remember? And if I was a horse, I would have done the buck, fart, snort, because they do all three of those things at one time when they're spooked. And I was spooked. So I went into the classroom and they put a band on his head with a pointer, and he had typed out, horse lady can hear me. So right then and there, I had confirmation. So then I could communicate with him, and I was very aware that I was actually hearing him completely mentally.
So Terry, interrupting you, how many years ago this happened?
1990.
1990. Okay. I just want to make sure that all audience heard us. That it's yes. Okay.
So I went back outside, and the gal was helping me just said, well, very, very matter of fact, well, if you can hear him, you ought to learn to communicate with the horses, because it's the same thing. All animals are telepathic. And I was like an idiot. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do. And there were no books at the time on how to learn to do it. I mean, it was really, really a struggle. And I was a mess. Oh my goodness, I was a mess. And so just through the years, I've been able to heal myself, get out of my own way, have no ego. Ego means easing God out. And I just
repeat it one more time.
Easing God out. EGO.
Thank
That's
you.
ego. Yeah. So little by little, when I would do readings, and I only wanted to do readings on animals, I would start picking up on deceased people. I would see health issues in people. I had no filter and no block. And so I was just getting everything. It was kind of overwhelming. But I ended up with 2 energy healers that were mentors. And so they would call me, several times a day saying, can you look at something? And remember, that's over the phone. Can you look at something? And so it really taught me that there's no limits to this. There's no limits. So I do remote viewing and map dowsing, and I can see inside of cells, I can see inside of bodies, and it's just really helped my practice. And so now, I can be doing a reading on a horse, and then I say, okay, you've got a second chakra issue. We need to talk about this. Or you have a third chakra issue, or oh my goodness, you have overwhelming grief. I'm picking that up in your heart. And of course, he burst into tears. I go, how did you know that? And I roll my eyes. So it's just evolved into this complete practice where I know there are no limits, and I will help in any way that I can.
Mm-hmm. And when you had this experience, how do you actually explain to the rest of the world, based on physics, based on vibration? What is the explanation from your standpoint?
Well, first of all, we are born telepathic, and we shut it off in childhood. But we're also born with energetic senses of intuition, clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, and claircognizance. Clair just means clear. So, we have clear knowing, clear feeling, clear hearing, clear seeing. It just means clear. So we all are born with all of those senses, and we just shut them off in childhood. So it is just not a big deal to turn them back on. And then we can use them for all different ways. So I love doing this. I mean, my TV show, when it comes out, should be called I Can't Make This Stuff Up. Only it should have a different S word, probably. But I love doing it, and it's so bizarre. I mean, I have so much fun doing it because I never know what's going to come up in a session with a client. And I've had a lot of clients where I've helped them to find their dis-ease or the issues in their tissues to where they can release it. Everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. And so cells respond to emotions. You think about how different you feel physically when you're grieving, where you feel like you have cement shoes on, versus how you feel physically when you've just fallen in love. The difference is night and day. So, when I use that example, people just say, oh, okay, I can see that. And we just have a tendency to stuff emotions and move on and just never deal with them. And they will come up and bite you in the hiney. They will. So I help people to look at the vibration and frequency of what they're telling themselves. It's really interesting, but there is no room for any disease in a happy body where there is self-love. There is no room for disease in a body where there is self-love, because the vibration of that person is way too high for any problems, and they could be eating whatever they want, really. And as long as they're not doing things like, alcohol or smoking or whatever, things that are really bad for them, as long as they're happy and they've dealt with their issues, they won't get sick.
So question for the, I think there is a, so for example, for the parents who actually raise children, and for parents, how do they discover? Did we, like as a child, we grow up and then we discover this, or we actually learn from our parents?
I think that there's an awful lot of hurt and pain that children absorb. And I think parents put out limitations. Oh, you're too stupid. You're too ugly. You're a girl. You're a boy. You're too young. You're too short. And they put all of this damaging stuff on us, which, it's very painful and very hurtful. And so I think by the time kids hit puberty, they're really messed up already. And then that's one of the most difficult times or challenging times for them, is they're trying to figure out who they are and what they want to do with life. And they don't realize already they've been totally disempowered. So one of the things I recommend is for people to think of who took your power and write them a letter and tell them off. And then you have to burn the letter while you say out loud, nobody's ever going to treat me like that again. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people can do to get their power back. And the next is choose to love yourself. It is a choice. And so when we don't choose to love ourselves, then we're basically agreeing to the problem.
Mhm.
That we're jumping in and saying, yes, that's true about me.
Excellent. Thank you. Terry, how do people connect with you?
My website is the best way. It's www.terryj.com. And I do have my book. This is my first book, and it's to teach everybody how to use their intuitive abilities. It's on my website and Amazon. And my next one is coming out this month. I'm so excited about it. And it's intuitive communication. So people can learn to communicate with those in a coma, persistent vegetative state, with severe Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injuries, strokes. There is a way to connect to them. There is a way to communicate with them. So I'm really excited about this other book coming out.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And we will be right back. All right. Welcome back. What an amazing conversation. I want to ask you, do you have a question for each other, maybe?
Well, I would just like to say, Betsy, I am so impressed by what you're creating and your attitude and how you are.
About me, or you talking about Terry and Betsy?
No, I just wanted to say that I was just Betsy. She's amazing. That she's in this position and she's so conscious, and there's so much love with her right now. There was no victim, no pity. There was none of that, and that's a hard state to get to. And so I want to acknowledge that and how exciting that is. And Terry, God, I love your story. It's super good to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you so much. This is awesome.
Yeah, same to you.
I could just keep asking you guys questions more and more. Like I want to know an example. Terry, how can I do something that tunes in my psychic ability right now?
Please use the word intuitive. Psychic, I have found, means not of the physical sciences. So if physics covers everything, then nothing is not of the physical sciences, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I use intuitive because it's more physics-based. So anybody can learn to turn their abilities back on. It isn't like I hate the word gifts. Oh, you have gifts. No. They're abilities. Everybody has them. They just have to turn them back on.
Yeah, a lot of the work I do with people is actually to get them to start listening to their bodies and to understand the difference between when the critical brain or the judgmental brain or the ego or whatever is talking to us and when our intuition is talking to us. So
exactly.
I'm so right in with what you're doing, but it can be hard. I like to say that the part of us that's hurting is like the 17-year-old rebel, and that we can't, when the rebel gets in trouble, right? Everybody's wagging their finger. You have to, when something needs to be, quote, fixed, right? I don't like that word, but let's say something has to be fixed. The principal's telling them what to do. The teachers are, the friends, the family members, all the authority figures. This is what you have to do. And nobody bothers to go to the rebel girl and say, hey, how do you want to heal this problem? Because I could tell you what I think you have to do or what might be right for me, but is that right for you? And so learning how to talk to that little rebel girl inside of us that is dealing with whatever it is, right, is such a big deal. So I'm right there with you. Thank you for that.
I think the biggest thing that people miss when they're trying to develop their intuitive abilities is how fast the information comes. And I've looked at a lot of other teaching materials in this subject, and I have yet to see what people bring up that is the most important part, and it's the timing. As you're starting to form a question, you've already been sent the answer. And then we sit there and wait. We get our whole question out to the universe or our body or whatever, and we sit there and wait, and we hear crickets, and we go, well, it doesn't work. So a conversation with guides or guidance sounds like this. It's that fast. So that's what people miss, because they think if it just pops into their head that fast, it can't be valid because they didn't finish their whole question.
Right.
And it's the opposite.
So I have
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I have one question. So besides with vibration and intuition, do you use actually like maybe technique with your body at the same time, like maybe breathing or do something? Like, do you actually incorporate anything from the physical standpoint? Maybe.
Yeah, I do. I set my intention and I do grounding, which is growing roots out your feet and your tailbone, sending them into the center of the earth, bringing them back up, opening your crown chakra on the top of your head, bringing in the white light, and then you tie the two of them together. And I have grounding instructions for anybody that wants them. They're free of charge. And so I do grounding, and then I have a way to turn on, but I'm usually on most of the time. And then I just get out of my own way. And it's really funny because my conscious mind is going, oh my goodness, that can't be right. And my mouth is going, blah, 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 telling the client all kinds of stuff. But my conscious mind is going, that can't be right. So it's pretty fun to do it. It's really fun. I have to write a book called Arguing with My Guides.
Yes. So Betsy, how about you?
Well, I was just going to say, do me. I went to see a healer in Joshua Tree not too long ago, which is where a lot of our projects are. And she did a meditative, like a shamanic, like a bowl vibration therapy on my belly. And it brought me just so close to the brink of absolutely losing it. And she told me she could recognize that I had a lot in me that I needed to let go of. And that thought has stuck with me. Yeah. Releasing suppressed emotions is another one of the 9 tenets. And for me, I sat down to journal and I thought, well, I can try and drudge up some things, but
the hardest part is it's usually anger at someone or circumstances. That is one of the most toxic things that we can hang on to. And I know a lot of people, they want to go to forgiveness before they've processed out the negative emotions. And you can't do that. It will fester.
Mm-hmm.
So don't go to forgiveness until you've processed out the negative emotions. Otherwise, it'll never work.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the kind compliments, but I from you, Dr. Schaefer, but I feel like I am, up to here in it, and I don't know how to get it out. But
well, I think that Terry's given you some good things, and I am, and letting go of stuff doesn't have to be so complicated,
right?
So part of the problem with the thing that you're holding on to, because I'm speaking from my own experience, right? Not only personally, but professionally, right? That part of the problem is we become attached to the way of thinking, to the way of being, I call it the safe, comfortable, and familiar problem, because there's a part of that is always going to try to draw us back to our past, what we know. If we think love is being in a insecure attachment relationship, we're always going to look for that insecure attachment, right? If we think that taking care of ourselves is taking a bath once a week, then we do more than that, then I'm being selfish. And I try to reclaim that word and say, being selfish is the best thing you can do. Be as selfish as you possibly can be. In fact, be selfish and be even more selfish, because people get those words confused. Selfish is I put myself first. I take care of myself. And as a young mom, this is huge, because moms sacrifice themselves, and we glorify this idea of sacrifice. It's in our theology. It's in probably pretty much every codified religion, that the idea of sacrifice is noble. It's not. Sacrifice is a waste of time. If you are sacrificing, you are harming yourself and everyone else, and you're creating resentment. So if you are being selfish and you are filling yourself up so that you can be with other people and give of your overflow with those other people, then you are actually in alignment with your highest self, right? So be more selfish, not self-centered. Know the difference. Self-centered is the world revolves around me and nobody else matters.
Yeah. Thank you.
I take care of myself. Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. It's amazing, the old terminology. And unfortunately, we are at the top of the hour. I feel like we should stay for another 3-4 hours. And I would love to connect. And also, I want to encourage all audience, please connect with Terry J, with Betsy Moyer, and Peter Bedard. And with that, we are almost at the top of the hour. So thank you for valuable advices. Love having you here. The one thing why we call the Doctor Connect, because one, the idea was connect the scientific community with patients, with other community, bring scientific and integrative medicine together. The other, we connecting with each other. But the most important, we have to connect with our mind, body, and soul. And with that, thank you so much for being with us on the Dr. Connect show. Join and subscribe our YouTube channel and comment. And we would love for you to be our guest. We are super excited to have you on this journey with us. And thank you for watching and listening. And we are looking forward to seeing you in the next one. And with that, bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Dr.
I'm Dr. Ludmila Schaefer, and I level the playing field of knowledge around disease prevention, research, and patient care to help you to make informed decisions.